Germany, the most evil nation in the world. They have destroyed our home and are continuing to do so. But we will get our revenge. The great trial will reach Berlin and justice will be served. But before we can reach Berlin, we first have to unite Russia under a single militaristic state. But it won't be easy. We are only a minor city in the grand scheme of things. The Germans are constantly bombing us, and in the west, a part of the remnants of the Red Army are threatening our control in the region. And on top of all that, our leader Dmitry Karbyshev is dying. But we have a successor. Dmitry Yazov, his closest confidant and student, will take power after his death. So, it's time to put our trust in him and crack down on the old guard who have lost their way. We started with breaking their cliques and began enforcing discipline in the army. Then we received an ultimatum from the communists in the West. We will not give them our loot. They were really unorganized, so we quickly won and managed to capture some guns from them. With our victory in the battle, it's time to try our own raid against the weak warlords in Pavlodar. We quickly won, and with the loot we gained, we could train new workers. We have now fought in a few battles, so it's time to develop our doctrines. We know that if we want the great trial to succeed, we have to learn from the Soviets' mistakes. Then our dear leader held his final speech, where we gave his last order: be ready for the trial ahead. Some days later he died, leaving the task of the great trial over to Yazov. But not everything is going well with the power change. The problems that Karbyshev so blindly didn't see will have to be fixed. He tried his best to get rid of the old guard, but didn't succeed. Yazov will finish it. But the old guard are fighting back. Open rebellions in all of our major cities. Luckily, we managed to secure Omsk after a short fight. Now it's time to take control over the rest of the country. It's time for the new order. We launched an offensive towards the Tara revolt. While we did, we noticed that the German bombers were getting rarer and rarer. Maybe something is going on in Berlin. Our offensive was largely successful and the old guard in the city surrendered. Now we have to start infiltrate the second old guard city to gain control over it. Our infiltration succeeded and we killed their leader, collapsing their revolt in the same time. With temporary stability regained, it's time for some industrial development. We started with building better rails and pumping up more oil. The oil will be a big benefit for when we are at war. With our economy on the way up and Bukharin's mess undone, it's time to think about war. If we want to survive the battles ahead, we have to make Omsk the unbreakable city. Forts to protect our soldiers and citizens. Yazov has also begun planning for the worst thing that could happen: his death. The name of the plan: Hydra. A clear succession order will ensure that the great trial is always well organized. If you cut off one head of the Russian serpent, two more shall take its place. With all these measures, we can finally say that Yazov's leadership over the country is secured. Rumors have started spreading throughout all Russian states that Hitler has died and Germany is in a civil war. We are not sure if we can trust them, but the German bombers have stopped, so something is going on there. But with the end of the German terror, a new hope has risen in Russia. This means we can finally begin the reunification process. But there is so much to plan and organize, from the economy to every single soldier. We started with funding the OMSK-TNO, our first and only tank factory. But tanks and weapons won't help alone, so we began an extensive training program and raised the Omsk Elite Force. Our first enemy in the wars of reunification is Tuimen, so it's time to prepare specifically for a war with them. We will send some of our soldiers to infiltrate their lands, so that when we are at war they can rise up and cause chaos. Then, to test our army and the enemy's army, we launched a border war against them. This was a great idea as it exposed their weakness. Even though their soldiers were determined, they were no problem for our superior firepower. So it's time to start the reunification. We will sharpen our swords one last time and then it's time for War Plan to Garin. At the start of the war we managed to encircle a part of their border guards. But as the days were running by, more and more of them began to show up. They started to push us back to the pre-war borders. But we managed to hold them back for now at least. So, to not risk another offensive from them, we deployed our first ever tank division. It wasn't as effective as we thought it would be, but at least we managed to break through. Once we did, we continued and managed to encircle their whole northern front. We began killing their 3 divisions who were encircled, then they tried a counterattack but to no avail. So, with their army weakened, we tried an attack in the south, but they must have known it was coming. Because right when we broke through, they counterattacked us and pushed us back to the beginning. Our tank was less effective than we thought. We will have to start using them once our industry is bigger. If we want to win this war, we have to win it now, or else it will be an infinite stalemate. So we began a new offensive, but this time it was slow and controlled. After some battles we broke through in the south. We were ready to exploit the opening, but right as we would they surrendered. We have no idea why, but never found their leader, so maybe he was murdered. With our first enemy defeated, it's time to integrate them and continue to the next. Sverdlovsk and their leaders who so naively want to restore the Soviet Union. It's time for War Plan Bogatyr. This will be so much easier than fighting Tuyemen because we have the industry and equipment from them. We attacked in the south where the defenses were weak and broke through and encircled their capital in the process. After a short fight, we captured it and their leaders. With this blitz victory, the rest of the country soon surrendered. We have now taken over 2 of the strongest nations in the region, so it's time for some peace again. We took over Sverdlovsk Design Bureau to gain more research and began coring their land too. With all this new land, we also have a lot of new people that all must be loyal to Yazov. After securing their loyalty, we began investing into more infrastructure and dispersing our industry to lessen the damage done by bombers. We also formed a new and more effective bureaucracy, getting rid of the old one. So, now it's time to sweep the rest, Zlatuts, Yugra and the free aviators. We will begin with Zlatuts, the greedy gunsmiths who want to destabilize Russia in order to sell more guns. But when we declared war, they unexpectedly called Yugra into it. So now we have a whole front open. But the Yugran army wasn't ready either. So we captured their capital after a battle with their weak divisions. As we continued up north, Zlatuts began attacking us and take territory. But our offensive to the north continued and soon Yugra surrendered. Taking over Zlatuts would be much harder. They were constantly trying to capture Yekaterinburg. But with the help of some new divisions we held out until the rescue came. The Zlatusian army was not ready for an attack, so we simply walked into their capital and encircled some of their divisions. From there we continued to their second biggest city. With it captured they surrendered. With their armory raided and assets seized, we continued to the free aviators. As they had helped us against the German bombers, we asked them nicely if they wanted to join us. Luckily for them, they accepted and joined our air force. But then we noticed we had one more enemy, Vorkutta, an NKVD holdout. They were weak and unready, so we simply marched in and captured their gulags. Now we have united West Siberia, so it's time to proclaim the West Siberian Provisional Authority. Long live Yazov for leading us in the first step to the unification of Russia. But even though we upgraded our administration, it is still overextended. So we will have to fix this and other stuff before we can continue expanding. It is time to establish a foothold in the region. We will also begin in regional investment to boost our industry. We began fixing the administration problem by securing the people, ending luxury, and redrawing internal borders. We met a small insurgency that were against our measures led by Pavel Batov, but we managed to find him and kill him. So, to get the people more under our control, we began militarizing our society even more and establishing the Committee of Internal Investigation. But enough of that, time for industry. We began total industrialization and optimized our agricultural output. 1 year later, we have transformed our old army into a true standing army worthy of uniting Russia. We have also begun with foreign diplomacy, both to get help and to gain influence in our enemies' countries. Now we are finally ready to continue the reunification of Russia. Our enemy will be the Provisional Commissariat of Western Russia. They are known for being collaborators with the Germans. We are now ready to destroy the traitors to the Russian people. The front was completely stable and the traitors were waiting for us to make the first move. So that's what we did. A quick offensive through their front line in the south. They were not ready and we captured the regional capital of Ufa. After that we continued more southwest and managed to encircle Orsk and some more states. This was a huge win for our new army and morale spiked through the roof. While we destroyed the encircled divisions, they managed to liberate Ufa from us, but we still managed to kill 75,000 of their army. With this huge win, we started planning an offensive to their capital. We launched it a month later, and on the way to the city we encircled and destroyed even more of their divisions. When we reached their capital, no military personnel were left in the city. They had abandoned it. With this complete military defeat, we just continued into their country, capturing Perm and then Syktyvar. Once we captured it, they surrendered. We had completely destroyed them and their army. Now we can finally proclaim that we are the one true Russia. We are the reclamation government. Now we began to integrate all new states that we had gained. We have to prepare for the reclamation of Siberia and our inevitable war with the Germans. Our most important project is the National Redoubt. We will build the biggest bunker system in the world. A year later, we were ready to expand into Siberia. We declared war on the Kingdom of Siberia and quickly encircled the part of their front where supply was low. Once we had destroyed the encircled divisions, we continued along the Trans-Siberian Railway. On the way to the east, we captured Novosibirsk, Kemerov, and their capital, Krasnoyarsk. Once we had captured it, we had to continue all the way to Irkutsk to make them surrender. This was further away from our supply hubs than ever, but it was no problem as we already had broken through. Once the Siberians noticed that we had no way of stopping our advance, they surrendered. We have united all of Russia. It's time for the great trial. We have prepared, but there are still some things to do. We have begun development of nuclear weapons, but sadly we won't be able to finish them before the great trial. We have also expanded our army and we are continuing to do so. If we want to completely destroy Germany, we have to get help from their enemies. The Americans. Luckily for us, they have a front with them. Italy. They have joined the OFN and are getting more and more aggressive against the Germans. We signed a deal with them that if we reach Moscow, they will join the war. So, it's time. The great trial will reach Berlin. But as we began marching, news arrived that Japan had declared war on Germany and the USA. The great trial has turned into World War III. The Germans were not ready. We captured Moscow after a short battle and then Paulusburg and St. Petersburg. Once we captured the three cities, Reichskommissariat Moscovian surrendered, leaving huge gaps in the German front line. From Moscovian we continued into Reichskommissariat Ostland and captured Estonia and Latvia, and also into Ukraine, the breadbasket of Germany. Once we captured Kiev, they surrendered. To finally reach Germany, we capitulated Ostland by capturing Minsk and Vilna. We now have an open way into Germany. Then we noticed that the Americans were really close to Berlin. We can't let them capture it, but there's nothing we can do. As they approached closer and closer to the city, the Germans were getting more and more nervous. They had only one option left. After a vote in the Reichstag, it was decided that they would use it. 2 hours later, air raid sirens all across the world began shouting. The Germans had used their nuclear weapons, and so did everyone else. The nuclear holocaust is here. But who cares? We're safe in our bunkers that we built for this one purpose. Now all we have to do is to wait for radiation to drop to feasible levels, and then we can rise up again and finish the great trial. Thanks for watching, see you in the next video.